Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me and my very special guest. He is a Tony and Grammy-nominated leading man. You know him from such Broadway musicals as An American in Paris, Anastasia, Evita, and Les Mis. And tonight, he kicks off the brand new Birdland in association with BroadwayWorld pay-per-view series called Radio Free Birdland with his concert. Please say hello to my friend, Max von Essen.
Hey, how are you?
You look sensational, my friend. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. But, I was just, as you're introducing me, I keep thinking, like, we go so way back. There have been so many shows that I've been a part of that you've covered. I mean, really, like, I was thinking about this interview this morning. I was like, oh my God, my whole career is flashing before my very eyes. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Well, I am too, because I had been there for all your milestones, including I saw you the first time you were in the original production of Les Mis.
Yes.
Actually, Paper Mill, I think, was before then, right?
Yes, because I replaced in the original production, so it's towards the end, but I think Paper Mill, My Fair Lady, probably. You did a Dance the Vampire special, Baker's Wife. I mean, all these things, like, over the years that we've done interviews, and it's wild.
Well, we're going to talk about your whole career today in this hour.
I know, but I don't want to feel too old, so let's not talk about too much.
You don't at all. Listen, first of all, how are you and where are you? Where are you coming to us today from?
I'm in my apartment, and I live in Hell's Kitchen in the theater district, and so I've been in New York this whole time. Yeah, we're basically neighbors.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, I've just been here, kind of hanging out, making it through the toughest time, and things are like getting a little bit better now in New York City, even though they still feel weird and tough. But yeah, that's where I am. I'm just trying to like get by. It's not been great, but it's a new normal, and just looking forward to when things get better and we really get back to work, as opposed to these kind of creative. These things are great that we've been doing so many creative things, but I'm looking forward to live theater again.
Well, like I was going to mention to you, this is our 154th day of quarantine. I mean, that's a really big number. How have you been dealing and handling the pandemic as it goes on? Like, where were you on March 12th when the theater shut down? Like, what went through your mind that day?
But believe it or not, I had just landed. A few days before, I was on my way to California at a concert with Billy Stritch in San Francisco, and I was on my way to Newark Airport. They canceled it because things were a little bit more serious in San Francisco than some other places. And I was like, oh man, because then I was supposed to go directly to Palm Springs. So I came back home, and then Palm Springs assured me that they were definitely moving forward. So I booked a new flight to Palm Springs the next day, and I did do the concerts in Palm Springs, and it was great. And everyone was feeling really good, even though, talk of the pandemic was just building and building. And I was starting to really stress out. I was feeling like that anxiety that something very serious was coming. And I was flying home that Thursday. I said, you know what? I just want to get home, back to my place, back to my cat. I want to go right to the grocery store, stock up on stuff just in case. And then as I'm at the grocery store, the New York State declared a state of emergency. The grocery store, that food emporium, that we know on 43rd, filled. Literally, you couldn't move. And I said, you know what? I'm just getting out of here, because now what's the point? You're just crawling with people. I said, this doesn't feel very, very safe. And then that night, Broadway canceled. And I always remember the next day was Friday the 13th. So I kind of like connect the dates. And then I really just hunkered down. Like I took it very seriously. And as you know, in New York City, it was no joke. We had quarantine. We started to have curfews, and you really had to stay. They, encouraged everyone to get enough groceries for like 2 weeks at a time and only go out for absolutely necessary things. So it wasn't a good time. I was all alone. I got very sad and really nervous and anxious. And I'm happy to have made it through that tough of a time, because that was really, I don't think anyone will, other than maybe Chicago or San Francisco, like, it's hard to explain that feeling, to people who are in the suburbs or at a lake house. And don't get me wrong, this is tough for the whole country. But the feeling in New York, hearing so many sirens, knowing about the hospitals being so overwhelmed, and it was anyway. That's a long way of saying it. Yeah. It was a very tough time in the beginning. I'm happy that things are, at least in New York, that we seem to have gotten a hold of it. And to a certain degree, and at least there's some life back in the city, some.
Yeah. What has amazed you the most during this pandemic, and what has frustrated you the most during this pandemic as it goes on?
Oh, well, I mean, there are two a personally frustrating thing is that we can't create art the way we create it, because, for those of us in this business, we know that probably 98% of us didn't even choose it. It's something that comes from your gut that you just have to do. This has totally reiterated it in my life, that this is what I have to do. This is what I was kind of born to do. I have a need to do it, to perform. I also have a need to see people perform. So I miss creating. I miss seeing my friends creating. So that's been very frustrating, and I totally understand it, of course. I mean, we have to stay healthy and safe. And the other thing is just, I just, this isn't even political. I hate when people say, don't get political, because to me, common sense or science is not political. We know that masks significantly help, during this time. And to pretend that it doesn't, or to pretend it's some sort of infringement on your rights, when we're just asking people to respect others and to protect themselves and other people, it's maddening. Because I saw what New York City and New York State did in 2 months, and how we got to control, and we're totally, the pandemic is still real, and people are still sick in the state, but we got it to a place of like a much safer place. And it wasn't a mystery. We worked really hard, and people did socially distance, and people wore masks. And I just don't understand why we're, 5 months into this, when really the whole country could have gotten that serious and gotten control of it. So now it is kind of just to a frustrating point, because we could be back to so many wonderful things in our life if people adapted that into their lifestyle and into their culture of wearing masks. And it's just a sign of love and respect for each other. It's just, so I can't wrap my head around that. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah. So much has happened during this pandemic, with people speaking out, finally using their voices against racial injustice and social injustice. So I'm going to ask you, just get political just for a second, of just saying, this November is a really big election, as they all are. But I just want you just to tell people how important it is to register and vote, and why. That's all I'm going to ask you, to get political for a second.
Oh my gosh. Well, it goes back to what I was saying before, in that I don't mind talking politics. I grew up Republican on Long Island. I have a lot of family members who are still Republicans, and I can have discussions about politics or big government and small government and these things. But when we talk about, a political party that legislates against human rights, or civil rights, or human equality, or against science, then to me, we're not talking about, how are we talking about politics? I'm talking about more morality. Like, how can you stand there and say that? And also, it just drives me. Oh my gosh, we could talk about so many things. Register to vote. It is so important, because once again, like I said, because I could talk about so many things in Black Lives Matter, and it drives me nuts that people can't just say that Black Lives Matter. No one ever said all lives didn't matter. No one ever said, when I'm marching at the Pride Parade, that I'm marching against straight people. Like, it's just an absurdity. Certain people, certain oppressed groups need help, and just want to be seen and heard. That's all. They're not trying to negate what any other people's experiences are. So anyway, forget politics. I'm talking about humanity. I'm talking about equality and civil rights and fairness, and just that's what's on the ballot. Like the moral compass of this country, not tax rates. You know what I mean? We're talking about truly important human issues. So please register to vote, and you know who to vote for.
Thank you for that, because I'm asking everybody that I've been speaking to, because
thank you for asking.
Every vote matters. People don't think, but every vote will matter. So I thank you for that. Well, listen, my friend, tonight's a big night for you. You are kicking off the new Birdland, in association with BroadwayWorld, pay-per-view series called Radio Free Birdland. How excited are you, and what can you tell us?
It really is very exciting. It's funny, around end of April or May, I actually emailed Jim Caruso at Birdland, and I said, hey, Jim, what are the possibilities? I said, I know Birdland isn't open, and I know we can't get audiences in there and perform. I said, but can we just go in there? Like, are people allowed to be in, are we allowed to be in the space? I said, it's been so incredible what people have been coming up with, and all these at-home events, and people making videos and sending them for different virtual charity concerts and things. It's amazing. But and the quality has just increased exponentially so quickly. It's wonderful, but we still aren't seeing things in, we're still not on a stage, with the piano at Birdland or the sound system at Birdland. So I was like, when can we get in there? He's like, I'm trying, we're trying to figure things out. And then Broadway World had the same idea and reached out to Jim, and then they came up with the series, and Jim emailed me right away. He's like, I have really good news. And I want you to be one of the first people up. I was like, oh my God, yes, please. That's so fantastic. And it is a weird feeling because we got in there and, it's just me and then Billy Stritch safely several feet away, and my special guest Nick Adams, who we sang a duet 8 feet apart. I wanted to hug and kiss him so badly. And I will say the first 2 or 3 songs, it did feel awkward, to have to stop and not that I do this for the applause, but when you do concerts, you kind of are assuming that is part of it. It's not like I'm in a show where the scenes go and you don't need applause every 5 minutes, but in a concert you kind of rely on it, or a little bit of laughter if you've developed a story that you want to share. But then after a couple of minutes, and you must know this because you do so much, so many features and speaking directly to camera, that you just have to trust that someone is on the other side. And I really started to not only trust that after a couple of songs, but actually feel it. I actually could kind of feel that there were going to be people on the other side of the camera. Hopefully, we're assuming, all things go well and there will be people on the other side of the camera, but you really start to feel that and trust that. So I was looking into the camera for a lot of it and just imagining the audience there. And I started to really enjoy it. And it was just so wonderful to be on a stage and to have that sound system and kind of be lifted by that. And Billy Stritch, as you know, is just, he's a one-man orchestra, and it's just, and I joke around with him because every time we rehearse or do something, I was like, Billy, that is not what you played the last time. He's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to play. And I was like, but every time I love it. He's an artist. He's really a genius, and he just writes out the charts. He knows exactly what's going to happen, and the song and the length and the bars and the keys, but he just goes off into a world and improvises, and it's so incredible. And we got to really make music again for an hour, and it felt good. It really, it's one of the things that's really lifted me during this time and given me something to hold on to and look forward to as I talk to you and try to get the word out. And it's been really needed after all these months.
Well, let's have a look at your concert.
Yeah.
Streaming from New York City, it's Radio Free Birdland. Tonight, Max von Essen with Billy Stritch. Special guest, Nick Adams.
Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me. At long last, love has arrived, and I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. To on the lonely nights, I love you, baby. Trust in me when I say, oh, pretty baby, don't bring me down, I pray. Oh, pretty baby, now that I've found you, stay and let me love you, baby. Let me love you. to be true.
That is terrific. What I want to mention about is each of these shows is filmed with 3 cameras, state-of-the-art sound and lighting, socially distanced musicians, and no audience. I mean, it looks like an old-fashioned TV special, and I mean that in the best way. Did it feel that way? Like something like, Vic Damone at the Hollywood Palace or something like that? You said that getting past the first 3 numbers and not having an audience, you just look so comfortable up there. I mean, talk about the material that you chose. How did you come up with what you wanted to sing?
Yeah, well, it's been a whole process for me and developing the show, because it essentially is what I've been doing at Birdland recently, and it's my album as well. I mean, I wanted to add in some surprises for people who have my album or people who have seen my Birdland show, but it's something that I have been developing and it's becoming a part of me. Then of course, the new songs, I was like, oh God, I was freaking out. I had to have like a little cheat sheet, on the piano. But it's all stuff that that feels like a bygone era, the real like golden age, a variety show time. I mean, we were inspired by some old arrangements by like Shirley Bassey, Lainey Kazan. We took an arrangement from her and then kind of made them our own. Billy did a big old-fashioned medley, wrote a medley so I could capture a lot of American in Paris, because I love Gershwin so much, and I wanted to really kind of give a tribute to my time in American in Paris, which was such a career and life high point for me. So it's all just songs that like standards, American songbook that feel so comfortable for me, and I appreciate you saying that, because I was looking comfortable, because you want to be comfortable on stage, and that's the material that like I do feel the most comfortable doing. And certainly for my first concert that I was going to put together, I wanted to feel like it was a part of me. For years I was scared about doing a solo concert and doing an album. Yeah. And I realized I had to figure out, what was it that I wanted to say, and what was the most, for me, it really was American in Paris, to be honest, that showed me, because I felt so good on stage singing those songs. And I loved Gershwin as a kid. So it was like already a part of me. I was like, listen, Max, if you're nervous about your first show, start from something that feels like home, that you're going to get on stage and already feel comfortable. And so I really love that. I really love that whole, forgotten era. No, it's not forgotten. I mean, everyone still connects to the American songbook and standards like that. So yeah, it's good. It's a real kind of love letter to that time. And I'm proud of it. So I hope a lot of people tune in.
Oh, they will, and you should be. Special guest star, Nick Adams.
I mean, he's delicious.
Yeah.
Delicious. Yeah. Well, I've known Nick for years, and we have been certainly good friends for a very long time. But once we did the Falsettos tour together, it was like, forget it. I mean, I absolutely fell in love with him. For those people out there who don't know him, I'm sure a lot of people in your audience do know him, because he's such a Broadway fixture, and he's just so beloved. He is people sometimes are caught off guard, because he is so beautiful, physically so beautiful, and his body is so beautiful that when you hear him sing and you see him act, you go, wait, how is this? Hang on, how is this possible? Who is this person? Is this a robot? It's just, and then he's even nicer than his talent. Like, he's one of the funniest, kindest people I've ever known or worked with, and so doing that tour together and playing Marvin and Whizzer, we connected in a way that it's hard for people to even connect in real life, because what we had to portray on stage. So it took our friendship and my love for him to another level. And I just thought, I know I love him, and I know people love him, and I know people have a very a warm spot in their hearts for the show Falsettos. So I thought that amidst all this, throwback kind of American songbook things, I would do something more familiar to maybe our Broadway audiences, and that people might really enjoy. And he was like, it was like a no-brainer. I was like, oh my God, to have Nick just join us on stage and to do our duet from Falsettos would just be like a highlight for us. Yeah.
That is great. You know, you mentioned Billy Stritch. You're working with one of the greatest musical directors and Grammy-winning songwriter. I mean, like you said, Billy lives inside the music and inside the artist at the same time.
Yes, yes. It's scary. Like, and I trust him so much. And I was really so nervous at first because I wanted someone like Billy Stritch.
Yeah.
You know, I remember talking to Laura Osnes because she's a good friend, and I trust her so much. I was like, hey, do you have any suggestions for a musical director? And she was giving me some suggestions, and then she was asking me, you know, what was like my dream, and Jim Caruso, I was asking the same questions, like, and they both were asking like, well, what's your like dream for, you know, music director? I was like, well, I need like a Billy Stritch type, you know. And then everyone really, after I was just kind of like floundering, I just honestly, I thought maybe I was a little bit too green in this area, and that Billy might think, you know, I know Max is I know Billy likes me and thinks I'm talented, but you know, it is a whole different world. You don't just kind of step onto a concert stage or a cabaret stage and think you're just going to be, you know, do it great. There are a lot of people who you go see the show and you're like, I don't know, this required. They're tricky, you know, tricky mediums. They're all, each one has their own challenges, and so I finally just asked him, and he said yes right away. And I don't know what I was afraid of, and we connected so deeply because we both have such a love, and we both actually were so both drawn to the Gershwins as a kid. We were both given big Gershwin anthologies as a kid. Mine was from my mom, and his was from his grandmother, and we connected on that. We couldn't believe when we first shared the stories, and is just one of those magical connections. And there was also another quick story. I actually tell in the show, but I'll tell it super fast now. One of my first auditions in New York City was for Liza Minnelli to be one of her backup singers. I was 22 years old, fresh out of college. And at the final callback, she asked me who my favorite songwriters were. And I said, the Gershwins. And she said, why don't I sing a Gershwin song to you? And then you sing one to me. And she's like, and we'll do it like a scene. Here I am like, I'm sorry, really? So, and I had a perfect Gershwin song ready. It's more under the radar. A lot of people don't know it. But this is the kind of thing that could have fallen apart. But at that callback was Billy Stritch on the piano. Who just improv'd it out of nowhere. I gave him this music to my song, but she just sang a song out of nowhere and picked a key out of nowhere, and he just joined in. And then she looked at me when she wanted me to sing my song, and so that we could do it like a scene. And then Billy just jumped right into my song, whatever key, you know, transitioned right into the key that I needed. It was just magical. So we actually have this real Gershwin love and connection, and we were speaking the same language almost the whole time as we were preparing the show. There are a couple of songs he was like, nah, I would show it to him. He's like, nope. He just knew right away not to do it. And there are a couple of things he suggested. I was like, nope. And then the rest just like, oh my God, it really fell into place. I mean, I'm not gonna say it was an easy process, but I mean, coming up with the song list and the flow was actually, it really did fall into place pretty easily. I have to say, Billy's he's a genius.
Well, I can't wait. We're all going to be there tonight, just so you know. And like I said, I can't wait. Well, you know, each new show of Radio Free Birdland features either an exciting Broadway, jazz, or cabaret performer. A new show airs every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Each concert kicks off with a live premiere event featuring a special chat, which includes the performer, and will then be on demand for 30 days at BroadwayWorld events, where you could also buy tickets. Now, Birdland, of course, we have to give a big shout out first to Matt Berman for the incredible sound and lights that he did, right?
Yes. Everyone at Birdland just is so great.
Well, I'm going to name a few of them because Birdland, of course, is Gianni Valenti's beautiful room, and Birdland's Ryan Patternite, right, produces and directs, along with Jim Caruso, who also serves as producer. You played Birdland. What makes that room so special to play? Oh, man, you know, It's hard to put into words. Sometimes it's just like a New York space just has that energy. And I've performed in pretty much every other, you know, sort of cabaret space. And my God, we have some great ones in the city, right? You know, so I've done so many presentations and benefits and things and different shows, and do one number here, one number there. But for some reason, I just, when I knew it was going to be time to do my own show, in my heart, I knew it was going to be at Birdland. Jim is one of my oldest friends in New York City, and I've been going to cast parties since literally like the first night he ever had it, when it was at a room next to the supper club. And I've gone
place it's gone since then. And then it landed at Birdland, has been there for what now, like 17 years or something crazy. I mean, it's just amazing what he's done. And so we have a relationship. I have a connection with that club, and it just feels right there. I love the room. I love the way it's like tiered. You know, the top room has like these different tiers, and then now with the space in the basement. God, I hate to even say a basement. Like, it's not a basement. It's just like this premier, like, new jazz club called Birdland Theater, which is where we film the show. It's a little more intimate. And it's like, I didn't think I would love it down there as much as I did, but I've now done my solo show down there too. And it just has a whole different feeling now. It's a little smaller, intimate, so I can see everyone. Whereas upstairs, you start to get, kind of whited out by the lights, and the room is longer. So you have to really open up and make sure you play the whole space. And then downstairs, everyone's sort of right there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see everyone's faces. I get nervous. But then after 2 songs, when I did the concert there, I was like, oh my God, I'm loving that I was seeing everyone's faces. I knew where my family and friends were, and I could just connect to everyone. And I didn't have to turn too much to play the room. I could just kind of, and it had its own sort of benefits compared to the upstairs room. They're both just 2 great spaces. And what's incredible, the sound system is just, it is just spot on, and it's actually a little bit exposed to. They never really add much, they don't kind of like zhuzh it up or like add much reverb for you. So if you really kind of get exposed there, like, so that's why some of these incredible, like, spot on jazz singers, just like, you can't fake that at Birdland, because we're going to hear what you sound like. And it's just such an incredible space to sing in. And I don't know, it just feels like old New York, and feels like New York history. And I'm a little boy from Queens and Long Island who dreamed about playing these kind of spaces and being on Broadway. So it has that kind of nostalgia and extra sentimental value for me. Like I've arrived in some way. So each time I play a different theater or a concert space in New York, it just, I don't know, it gives me those goosebumps, because I used to walk around this neighborhood as a kid and dream.
I love it. Well, many people were supposed to make their Broadway debuts this spring. Then the pandemic hit. And I hope they all get to make them when the theater comes back bigger and better than ever. But I want to ask you about your debut, of course, was in the original run of Les Mis. What do you remember about your Broadway debut in Les Mis?
Well, actually, my Broadway debut was in Jesus Christ Superstar. Now, it's confusing because Les Mis, the original Les Mis, obviously opened years before, but I joined the original company of Les Mis in its final couple of months. So Les Mis was my 3rd Broadway show.
Oh, interesting. Because when you look at the database, it lists that first. Yes. All right.
And
like
that's so funny too, because I'm doing a BroadwayWorld takeover today, and I did a little trivia. I was like, what was my Broadway debut? That's so funny. And then I realized like it probably is confusing. Yeah. So it was Jesus Christ Superstar. It was at what was that? The Ford Center.
The Ford Center. Now? Right, the Ford Center. So
where the Harry Potter is.
So you started as something, but you also understudied Jesus, and you got to go on. So what I'm going to ask you is, what do you remember about your first performance on stage as Jesus? Is it a blur?
No, it is not a blur. It is like I'm having a panic attack because I feel like it's happening right now. It's funny. Sometimes I forget that I've actually, understudied in a couple of different productions. In Les Mis, I understudied Marius and never went on. But then, in Evita, I understudied Ricky Martin as Che and went on many times. But okay, so Jesus Christ Superstar, my Broadway debut. I'm in the ensemble with Christian Borle was like in my dressing room. Remember, it was like such an incredible. We were just in the ensemble. I understudied Jesus, and so we're very early in previews, maybe like our 2nd week of previews. And I wasn't thinking in any way that I'd be going on soon. It's a Tuesday morning, and oh my God, we're at a studio. I forget what it's called, just a few blocks away from here. And the guys, the ensemble, we're at a studio recording "What's the Buzz" for like a radio spot. Well, we're just there like, "What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening." And then I see one of the producers like look at me, and they're like, I was like, okay. And they come over, they're like, "Max, we're gonna send you right to the theater, because you're on tonight." And now I had no rehearsal. It's with 2nd week of previews, so nothing. Now I had done Jesus regionally, so I knew the text, right? basically. But I mean, this is a completely new production. I don't know one costume change, no staging, no nothing. I haven't been even in the rehearsal room for a lot of it, because very often, if I'm not in a scene, I'm not there, or you're in another room rehearsing, because if this is now tech and this is previews and this is craziness. So for those people out there who don't know, like it would be a luxury at this point to have understudy rehearsal. It's up to me to start learning that, but I wasn't even there yet. I was still learning my part. So they sent me right to the theater. I rehearsed from like 1 p.m. until half hour. And I learned the entire show with the director. At around 4, they start bringing in different cast members as the day goes on. And then by late afternoon, the entire cast comes in so we could run some of the bigger numbers. And so I could do like the Last Supper. And then I just went on that night. And it was craziness. I barely remember the performance, but it was pretty thrilling. And I remember I told my parents and my agents, because like, what if I never go on again? Of course, I went on like the next day again. But it was surreal. And it was thrilling, but I was really scared. I mean, I was 25, I think. And, my first Broadway show, I didn't have I hadn't started working with my current voice teacher, Joan Lader, who really would have been a godsend at that time, because it was such a hard role to sing. It was a real challenge. And singing, for those people out there who know me, you might not think that Jesus is like the role I'd be singing. And I can do it, but it really is a challenge and very tough on my voice. And man, it was wild. That was crazy to just be like told at noon, like, you're on tonight, and to learn the show. It's like a great Broadway story. I mean, I literally learned every step of the blocking in like 6 hours, and then did it that night.
Sometimes you can do that because you're just focused on that one thing. You're focused on that performance.
Yes.
He goes here, he goes there. It might have fallen out of your head after you did it, but you were so focused on that. So
totally.
Was Dance of the Vampires next?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
All right, so I have to ask you about Dance of the Vampires, the ill-fated. Listen, Preston and I went to the show like 5 or 6 times. The publicist kept saying, do you want to come back? We're like, yeah, let's come back. Even though the show was what it was, we had a blast at that show, seeing it over and over and over. So I have to ask you, what are your memories of doing that show with Michael Crawford and that sensational cast?
Oh, the cast was outrageous. And and listen, it was my certainly not my debut, as we now know, but it was my leading man debut. Okay. I mean, if people saw that show, you think Michael Crawford and Renee Auberjonois, Mandy Gonzalez. I had a massive, fabulous role.
Alfred.
Alfred, the romantically, kind of also very, very silly and naive and kind of an airhead young leading man. So I got to do some comedy. I had a great, great ballad in Act 2 called For Sarah. And I mean, I got to sing my face off with Mandy Gonzalez, who was just, who was a real, just beginning as well at that time, and blew people's minds with vocally, certainly. And it was a thrill. I mean, I also... I mean, I knew it was campy and weird, and not like a quality show, but I thought it was really fun, and I just thought, because it was so campy, that it was going to develop a real following, and I thought it was going to do well, because I just thought it was a spectacle. I like to describe it as a must see. Sometimes you say like Hamilton is a must see. This was a must see. You know what I mean? Like, some shows, you must see it to believe it. And I was in one of those. Like, and my dad always jokes. He's like, listen, anyone could be in a boring show. He's like, anyone could be in a flop. He's like, you were in a flop. So it's kind of like this fun, historic moment of my career that I will never regret being a part of. And it's always a great story. And like I said, I had a great role in it. So I was always so excited to go there. And I had hoped it would run a little bit longer, because I did, but it's so big and so expensive to do. So like, we just couldn't, it wasn't, Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah. Was Les Mis next then?
Yes.
Right,
Les Mis was, I know, right?
I love it though. I'm fascinated by this. So, but you were in the original run, so that must have been really exciting, like at the end.
Oh my God. So, I mean, and it's funny, because I had just done a leading role, and then they asked me, Les Mis just called, because I had been auditioning for Marius for years, and I was like on all kinds of lists for it, and it just never happened. And then they called my agent. I had just finished Dance of Vampires, and they were like, listen, we were just curious if Max might want to come in join the final cast of this original production and understudy Marius. And they were kind of like wondering like if I might be interested, I guess because I had just done a leading role, and they were curious if I would go into the ensemble, which I guess a lot of people wouldn't do, perhaps. You want to, people are thinking about their whole career and, making moves to like move up the ladder, I guess, which I totally understand. But for me, it was like, no, yeah, of course I want to do it. Like, how thrilling to be. I mean, Les Mis was one of the shows that like made such an impact on me as this kid from Long Island. It might have been the third or fourth Broadway show I had ever seen. And it was one of those shows where I looked at the show and I was like, oh, that's me. Like, I'm one of those guys. Like, that's a show I could, of course it was a dream, but like I could be in, like, that's something I could maybe do one day. So then, whatever it was, I mean, in its 18th year or something, to get to join that production. I mean, I got to join the production that I saw as a little kid. So it was really thrilling, and to me, it was a no-brainer to jump into that ensemble and experience the final weekend. You can't imagine like how crazy it was, and we filmed it, for the Lincoln Center archives, and all kinds of celebrities were coming through, and we had huge parties, and then the final performance, we finished the show, and then we did a sort of like post-show on stage, and at one point they had the entire mezzanine was former cast members, and I forget how we set it up, but that's right. But they had the original cast come back, Colm Wilkinson, Randy Graff, and they did that final sequence where like Fantine is like, "Come with me, what chains will never bind you," something like that, right? Like, she's a ghost and she's bringing Jean Valjean to his. Yeah. Like he's leaving the earth, like at one, the real gut-wrenching, the final scene. The original cast came back. Francis Raffel, they were doing it in costume and recreating that scene. And the audience was just like, you could hear a pin drop. It was so thrilling. And then, then we as the ensemble, we're in the back and we're ghosts, and very lightly we sing like, "Do you hear the people sing?" Right? And we like start to finish the show. Well, with us was the entire mezzanine, hundreds of former cast members also singing that with us, like in a whisper, and then coming down the stairs, filling the aisles of the Broadhurst Theater. No, that's where I did the next revival. Yeah, it was the Imperial. Yeah, right, the Imperial, right? Yes, the Imperial.
I was there at that closing performance.
Right. So do you remember this?
I have goosebumps. Just you telling me all this all over again. It was unbelievable.
Goosebumps. Like one of those, I can't believe I'm a part of this. Like it was one of those, you just can't explain it. And for those people, I think for those people who know about the Lincoln Center Library and the video archives there, you can go watch this final performance, and I'm sure that they have the entire after show as part of it. In fact, I have to make a note to myself once things are open again to go watch that, because what a thrill it was. Those are the moments that like I can't explain what it's like to be a part of moments like that. So I'm so thank God I made that decision to join that company and do that. And it was such a gift that they call me, and it's just magical. But
then you got to do the revival too. How amazing!
I know. And what's crazy is that the revival was my next Broadway show. I didn't do a Broadway show for almost 5 years. Yeah. So I went from Les Mis to Les Mis. Isn't that crazy?
That's great.
And played Enjolras, and did that for about a year.
That's great. Well, I have to move on to Evita, because you played Magaldi in the Broadway revival of Evita, and you also got to do Che too. Now, the first time you went on for Ricky Martin as Che, was it announced that he wasn't going to be there, or did you go on because it was like, "Ladies and gentlemen," or the little slip-in falls out of the playbill, where it says that this performance, the role of Che, usually played by Ricky Martin, we played by Max von Essen. What was that first one on for you?
Oh my God! These questions are so funny you're asking them, because they're literally like, they're these like unforgettable moments. I actually tell this story in the show tonight. Also,
okay, and I haven't seen your whole show.
Oh my gosh! Well, I thought like, because Ricky is like a show business creature, right? He is, and I mean that in the most most incredible way. Like I look up to him so much, have for a very long time. And his voice was so strong. He's so physically strong in rehearsals and previews that I kind of thought like, well, he's probably never going to miss. Now, don't get me wrong. So I was still ready, and I had understudy rehearsals. Now at this point, I knew the role and I had learned it. I had rehearsals. And I had never with the full cast, but I had done them at understudy rehearsals with several different understudies and swings. So I had a real feel, and I wasn't nervous in the sense like, oh my God, like what's the blocking? What are the words? But it was another one of those situations where it came out of nowhere. I was at the theater in my dressing room stretching to play Magaldi. It's 1:15 p.m. for a Wednesday matinee. And Ricky's dresser knocked on my door and just started asking me these questions, like how I liked my tea and my water. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, do you like your water like cold or like room temperature? I was like, what do you mean? I don't know. Cool. Like, why are you asking me these questions? He's like, Max, you're on today. I was like, shut up. And then it's like, I was like, what? And my phone was blowing up with stage management calling from downstairs, their office. And I was on that day. And so here it is 1:15. And honestly, this was the best thing that could have happened because I do still have a lot of stage fright, and I do suffer like from a lot of anxiety. And until I really get something in my body, I still get very nervous. Like once I'm in a Broadway show and it's up and running, I don't get nervous. I can't wait to get on the stage. And if I'm doing a concert at Birdland, once I'm like 3 songs in, oh my God, it feels so good. But like the build up, the anxiety, and certainly if I haven't done something before. So if it's a new performance, a one night only concert, or you're going on as Che for the first time, that's like a terrifying feeling. So it was kind of good because I was panicking at when I might be going on, and I was just kind of thrown on. And oh my God, that company just held my hand figuratively the entire show and gave me such incredible energy, just like they had when I did Superstar and went on as Jesus. And the BroadwayWorld is just the best. I mean, it's such a family. I mean, I always remember too, as Jesus, it's like, well, I'm Jesus. Like if I walk somewhere, I'm sure they're going to follow me. You know what I mean? Because if they don't, it's going to look really foolish. But everyone, you just lean on people, and and it all came out, and everyone was really thrilled. And because I'm a different person, obviously I do things differently or sing things differently. And so you could sing one note and you hear the dancers around you, or you hear them get excited. It's just kind of fun to have a new energy and support a new energy. When you do 8 shows a week, it's when little things are different, it's kind of, it energizes it in a nice way. And then I went on again that night. So I got 2 under my belt, and it was thrilling. Then I started to really enjoy that role because then Ricky started taking Monday nights off because it was kind of exhausting. And so he could be with a longer weekend with his family. And then he wound up taking we ran, I think almost a year, not too long of a run, but a nice little run. Yeah. And he took 2 different vacations. So then I would do like 6 of those shows. And then, the other understudy would do 2 more. So it was great. A couple of people got to experience the role of Che, and I had a great time. And
what a great way to play Magaldi, which is also an incredible role. But then to do Che, I mean, it's like the best. I mean, you can't play Evita, so you must have played those 2 incredible roles.
Couldn't I? No, just kidding.
Miscast or one of these incredible things or whatever. When it comes back, let's do another production of Evita. But what a wonderful way. I want to move on to An American in Paris because, like I said, I was there a lot from the very first day you guys arrived in New York, or even before you went to Paris. I was obsessed with that musical. To me, that was like an MGM fantasy for me come to life. And to watch you do that, and Robbie Fairchild and Leanne Cope and everybody connected with that show. Christopher Wheel did. What a beautiful job he did with that show. Henri, you played. What are your favorite memories of living in that world of An American in Paris?
I love that whole experience so much. It literally, I've done so many great shows. You've seen them all. You've interviewed me.
I've been there.
I've been really lucky, but I will say that for me, my career is sort of like led to American in Paris, and now it's like leading away from American in Paris. And I mean, my gosh, you know how much I love doing Anastasia and falsettos. Like literally, like I'd go back to either of them tomorrow. I love them so much. There's just sometimes things are just like an overall experience that you just can't you can't put into words. It was just too magical. I mean, talk about this like Gershwin, this little kid that got that Gershwin book from his mom and became obsessed, and then had that audition for Liza Minnelli and sang those Gershwin songs, and all these things that kind of led up to my time with American in Paris and singing these songs that I taught myself as a kid, like on the piano, like just surreal. And then, as you know, for us to have the out of town tryout in Paris, and I'm
Paris,
the friend, and
Paris,
I'm the
France.
friend, yeah, right. And I'm in the show, you know, of all the most of the leads, like there are only a couple of actually French characters. And so here I am in Paris playing Henri Borel, who was played by Georges Couturier in the film. And Georges' daughter, he's no longer alive, but his daughter came to see the show several times. And she would hug me and almost cry at backstage. She's like, "Dad, is Dad," you know, and she'd like so surreal. We were on the stage of the Châtelet in Paris where her father had performed. So this beloved performer in France, Georges Couturier, who I got to play, you know, and I got to play the role he played in the film. And it was just, the whole experience was magical. And then forget it. I mean, to announce Broadway before we even start our out of town tryout, and then for Broadway to be received well, and for me to really have my first moment as far as award recognition, which is not something like, that's not something that drives me or is really even on my radar, because I've done a lot of shows and that's not what's happened. And so I love to just work. So when that started to come, my gosh, that's just like icing on the cake. And I don't know, it's just the whole experience. And then, I mean, forget it with the friends I made and how close I still am with Brandon Uranowitz and Robbie Fairchild. We're became brothers in that production. And Leanne and Joe Pace and Vianne Cox. I mean, it was just, it was a phenomenal group. And the experience overall was just one of those, once in a lifetime. You know, if I get one or two more of those, I'd be insanely lucky. But every once in a while, people are part of something like, I can't imagine what it's been like for the cast of Hamilton, or what it was like being in The Producers, and not that American in Paris certainly didn't have that success, but the feeling you have with certain shows and how they do, and what it's like getting up on stage and being with that company, and like it's just a forever.
Totally glorious, like an MGM fantasy. We're almost out of time, my friend. Just so you know, we're almost out of time. So I got to talk about Anastasia. I mean, Lynn Aaron, Stephen Flaherty, Terrence McNally. I mean, what was that world like living in?
It was amazing. And, it came as a slight surprise to me, because at the time I had been, it was a little less than a year after I left. I didn't leave American in Paris. The show closed, so we all left. But I had some close calls with some other shows, and I was actually kind of down that they didn't work out. I was like, oh man, am I ever going to work again? And then I got an audition for Anastasia, and then I went to see it, and I was like, oh, this is actually really beautiful. And I was watching Ramin play this role, and I was like, wow, my gosh, he gets some great songs, and there's like really a lot to sink your teeth in this role. And then I booked it and I started doing it, and it was one of my favorite roles I've ever played. It was also one of those shows. I mean, and generally in this business, for me, it's been a very happy business, and the feeling amongst the cast are generally like extremely positive, and I just love to do what I do. But there are highlights, with that, there are some shows that just stick out in your mind. And the feeling at the Broadhurst doing the show, and with Bonnie Pants and this fabulous stage manager just keeps everyone in line, but keeps spirits high. And the Tom Carter, the producer, and it was just a fantastic play. I couldn't wait to get to work. And Christy Altamari and Derek Klena and John Bolton, Mary Beth Peel, and then Zach Atkins, who took over, I've become so close with. It was, I couldn't wait to do it. So I loved it, let alone being on stage, but also just being off stage and hanging out with people. Oh, and then also, because this is my first time being in a Terrence McNally show. Yeah. Lynn and Steven, we've got them a lot longer, and I know I'm going to do many more things with them. But the time was, let's be honest, was running out. And I hope I do more Terrence pieces, but I wanted to have, so desperately wanted to have an experience while he was here, you know? And not only was he here, he was in good spirit and strong, and he would visit, and I got to spend time with him, and I will like treasure that forever, to be able to speak his words on a stage, knowing what he's meant to me, knowing what he's meant to the theater community. I really feel lucky, like almost that I came in like, just got it, you know, just managed to have that experience before he was taken from us. And it's something I'll really, really treasure for the rest of my life.
Beautifully put, because I feel the same way. I've known Terrence for a very, very, very long time, and I've been doing this for a long time, but to have gotten to know him and sort of, you know, let into his circle, and I consider him one of the greatest, not only just, I know you're crying. I mean, I totally, I mean, just one of the greatest creators of art, but also one of the greatest human beings. So I just, he's looking down on everybody, Terrence. And Tom, like I said, his husband, Tom Curdy, he's the best. But I have to also ask you about, talk about a dream role and a dream show, falsettos. I mean, I know you and Nick Adams get to do an incredible duet in your show tonight, but that was a dream role for you in a dream show, to tour the country with that show.
Yeah, that was another one. You know, falsettos hadn't been on my radar as much as I loved a lot of it and a lot of the music. And I've come upon it at different points in my career, and in college, you know, we'd sing some of the songs, but I hadn't thought about the show, probably because I never necessarily thought I was a whizzer, and so I was as I was younger, I just didn't think I would be in that show. But then, of course, you know, years go by, and suddenly you're older,
and you're a Marvin.
Yeah. And so a couple of years ago when I saw the revival, oh my God, I was blown away. And Christian Borle, who's, you know, an old friend of mine, and we made our Broadway debuts together. And before that, we toured Europe in West Side Story as Tony and Riff. I mean, I've known him for ages, and I saw him in this role, and certainly in no way did I think like, oh, I could do what he's doing. But I just, because he's so brilliant. But I thought, oh, wow, I think I could play that role. And I made a note then, and I told my agents, I didn't know what was going to happen with the revival. I know it was limited run, but sometimes, you know, they keep going or they recast. I said, we have to keep an eye on this. And if they do a tour, we have to express interest. And the second they announce a tour, we express interest, and I auditioned for it. And thank God, because, and everyone told me this, Andrew Reynolds, Stephanie J. Block, you know, Brandon Urano, so like, your life will be changed from doing the show. It will be changed. And I wish I could do, like I said, I wish I could do it again tomorrow, because it's one of the most challenging and rewarding shows you can ever be a part of. God, it is so beautiful. And it changes people. It changes hearts. And it brings out people who are like longing for different kinds of representation on stage. And all over the country, we would have trans kids at the stage. And I thought, trans kids? We are connecting to trans kids? And I was like, we're not even representing them on stage. But it was just to have the LGBTQ representation and loving gay couple, loving lesbian couple, a non-traditional family landscape. It just meant so much to have that representation matters. We always say that, but it is so true. And I just thought, oh my goodness, look at all these kids who are teenagers who are coming out and waiting at the stage door, lines out the stage door, lines in Chicago and San Francisco and in LA outside the Amundsen, but just like literally like down the block. And we get out from the stage. I was like, wow, I'm going to be here for a while. Yeah. But they were all young kids thanking us for the performance and thanking us for the representation. I just thought, wow, thank, you know, Bill Finn and James Lapine for having this idea and writing such a beautiful, beautiful musical. But art really matters. It really lifts people. It really changes people. It's not just an escape. So not every show do you get that, you know, in return. Some shows really are for a wonderful night of entertainment, and some, like falsettos, they really matter. They really matter.
Well, I'll tell you, before we go, you have an incredible debut solo album. Please give everybody the name of this album and where they can get it.
Well, thank you for asking, because I'm so bad at like promoting this album. It's called Call Me Up.
No, hold it up. Hold it up.
I only have it here because sometimes I forget what I recorded or what I sing. In the moment, I go, oh, some people say, like, what do you sing on the album? I was like, oh, I don't know. Anyway, it's called Call Me Old Fashioned. the Broadway standard. You can still, get it on iTunes or stream it on Spotify or order a hard copy on Amazon or something. But yes, it's what I started doing the show at Birdland. And then that over time, take a song out, put a song in, try something new. And it started to really develop. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think there's an album in here too. So Billy and I went to the studio with our band and recorded it. And I'm really proud of it. And now, so tonight is also a version of the album with a couple of different, additions and one or two surprises, although I ruined the surprise with Nick, although I think people probably could have figured out what we were going to say.
Oh, they can't wait after you
but it'll still
whetting
be
their
exciting.
appetite tonight. So,
Yes.
well, once again, everyone, Max von Essen kicks off the new Birdland in association with BroadwayWorld pay-per-view concert series called Radio Free Birdland. Tonight, Thursday, August 13th at 7 p.m. He will be joined by musical director Billy Stritch and special guest star Nick Adams. Tickets are only $20 and are available at Broadway World Events. And the concert will be available there on demand for 30 days. Max, I have had a blast catching up with you.
Same. Seriously, Richie, I just adore you. Thank you for having me on. I always love talking to you.
Well, listen, have a great time tonight. Everybody, we'll see you tonight at Max's concert. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon when the theater is back, bigger and better than ever. Take care.